In today's episode, Meg and I are going to be talking about her daily practice, and she shares some tips for us on how you are going to be able to start your very own daily practice. We are going to be diving into how following these breadcrumbs leads to transformation in your creative practice, and how being present and allowing for change is such a powerful tool in finding your creative voice and in developing what it is that interests you and how you can then interpret this in your art. So it's one of those that you've got to buckle up for. We are going to be covering a lot of ground. So let's get into it.
Gotta get messy and show the world you growing as an artist. And you're free to be yourself. You got a dream, you need to start it. Stick together. Get messy says you're formally invited to a community where you can find people that spark the feel of excitement. Too many art supplies, not enough time. No, it's tougher, so you must find a way to feel some connection. We got a lot of people with the same kind, a great mind. We here for you, a platform so we can hear your views. Time's yours, forget chores. I know you bored of them same rules.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new Get Messy podcast episode. Today, I have got the privilege of talking to Meg. I am so excited. I've kind of been low-key stalking her on Instagram. I think she might be a little surprised because I could name to the day her daily practice because, right, stalker vibes. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Meg and to digging into her creative practice and all the wisdom that she has to share with us. So Meg, do you maybe want to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. First, thank you, Claudette. When I got that message in my inbox with an invitation to get messy, I felt a surge of elation and also like, am I good enough? Because I feel like art journaling is very new to me, but it actually, when I looked at my whole body of work through the lens of art journaling, I was like, absolutely, this is art journaling. But there's been elation riding through this invitation, and it's been so powerfully sweet to see this community and how everyone comes together over creativity. So a little bit about me. I live on 40 wild acres in sort of central eastern Washington of the United States. And this place deeply informs my practice and who and how I am. I love the open field sages, the open sage fields, the open field sages, sure. And how much of the sky you can see and how much of the land is open and without human presence, which is not to say that I don't have an affinity and agape love for humans, because I do, but I'm restored by this place. I'm originally from Maine on the northeast of the United States, and my creative self has just always been. I have always been hyper creative and have taken on any form of creativity that has been offered to me as a possibility. I've toured a lot of the world, I guess, with music, and have been painting for most of my life, and everything else, theater, any of it, anything that has come my way, I've sort of eaten up. But my true love is painting. And I find painting to be a vehicle for expressing the things that I find most important about life. And one of those things is presence. And I feel so strongly about presence that I've dedicated myself, as Claudette mentioned, to a daily practice, which I can talk a little bit more about as we go along. But I guess that's like the foundation. And there's some other things, like I come from a mixed Indigenous Latina background, and that also informs who and how I am. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'm interested. I'm interested to know how you ended up going from Maine to Washington. Like where you're staying now is obviously very connected to who you are and
Yeah.
to your creativity. So how did that transition, how did you end up living in Washington? How did that happen?
How weird can we get? Can we get weird? I so the surface part of the story is that I was invited to play a festival, a music festival in Bellingham, Washington. And one of my dear friends who I had been touring with for almost a decade has been putting on this festival in the Northwest for now 25 years. And in 2013, he invited me and my band to come out to the Northwest and to play this festival. And I fell in love with Washington. Like Washington just felt like home. And I came back a few months later and did a little tour and was like, no, really, like this wasn't just a flash of feeling. It was a total energy of recognition. The weird part is that for about 7 years, I had been having some reoccurring dreams, and markers from those dreams were obviously evident to me when I went to Bellingham. And details that were really strange, that exactly mirrored what had happened in some reoccurring dreams were there. And I knew that it was a place for me to go to because those interior anchors were there, expressing in the outer world. So, and then when I moved, so I'll name that the west side of Washington and the east side of Washington are incredibly different. In every way, like the eco niche environment, like the environment is very different and the culture is very different. But during the pandemic, my husband and I came to the east side for like a week-long vacation in like a tiny cabin in this tiny town. And we were like, yes, I feel really good here. This is amazing here. And we were ready to consider buying a home. We were ready to consider buying a home. And we've both found ourselves looking in this area. And we both found this 40-acre parcel that had a terrible, gross cabin on it. But we were like absolutely in love with this land and knew that it was our home. And it worked out. And we've lived here for 3 years now and have built, I'm in a studio that my husband built, and I wish I could show you, but my internet is so weak that if I move this, it will disconnect us. But he built this beautiful art house for me. And we've been building little cabins and a bathhouse, which will soon have an actual like soaking tub in it, which is my joy. And we've made our gross barn a really beautiful place. But because it was just a hunting cabin. I think a lot of people came here and used this land, and we've really come here to be with this land and steward it and steward what this place could be so that others can come and enjoy it with us.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that is so exciting. It's amazing. Like it all just worked out so perfectly because I can't imagine you staying anywhere else. Like looking at your art and how inspired by nature it is and how connected you are to the environment around you. It makes like perfect sense that this is where you've ended up.
Thank you, Claudette. Yeah, I didn't realize that a lot of my voice has come out this year. I think I'll talk a little bit about my daily practice because
yes, please.
It arrives at it really has an apex meeting with this land and my voice actually coming out. So daily practice for me and any of you who are going to participate in my Get Messy class, you'll hear some of this again. But daily practice for me started when I was 17 when my dad passed. I had been cultivating a seed of appreciation for monasticism since I was a kid. And it really did start with the sound of music, which I find hilarious. But there was something that struck me. It wasn't benign that Maria was part of a cloister and then like bopped out of it. I'm not religious. I am an interfaith minister that has evolved even into like not that over 20 years. But I'm not religious, but I'm like obsessed with monasticism. And I don't know, maybe it's a past life or something. Like it's like I know that shape of dedication and focus, and I'm really anchored by that. So it started with some movement practices and a poetry practice called pantome and sketchbooking, but didn't work out for me. Sketchbook practice didn't work out for me. And I was so mad about that because I wanted it to work, but I found myself not knowing how to carry something all the way through. So I instead of forcing it and pushing through, I kind of backed off for a bit and did other things. In 2015, I saw an artist in the UK whose name I keep blanking on, which is so unfortunate. I can see her art in my head. And if I remember, I will send this note to Claudette so that it can be included. But she did a 30 Faces in 30 Days challenge, and her voice really struck me, and like what she was doing really struck me. And I was like, faces, 30 faces, 30 days. And I hadn't seen anything like that prior to this. I guess people have been doing like 30 faces, 30 days, or even like 100-day practices or whatever. But I've just been in my own world with daily practice since I was 17. So I did 30 faces in 30 days. They're terrible, which is kind of great. Like they're not great faces because I was so used to working on a painting for 6-8 months and it kind of feeling dead. Like none of them really like came to life, but I loved painting. And so I kept painting and I kept working at it. But I was also working more than full time. So I was just kind of like petering in my ability to actually finish a painting that I liked. So something generated in me, even though I didn't love any of the faces that came out, something happened in me by dedicating to 30 days of 30 faces. When I got to like day 10, I was like, I want to keep doing this. And I think I'm probably going to want to do this longer than 30 days. And then by the time I got to the end of the month, I was making a plan to at least go a whole year. Like I had asked myself, like, is it 3 months? Is it 100 days? What is it? Like, what's my container? And the first container after the 30 faces, 30 days was a year. And it hasn't stopped. I'm in almost my 10th year. And it just hasn't stopped. So, what's cool about the practice, about daily practice for me, and I think this is maybe true for art journaling, I didn't have to dedicate to making a body of work that made sense. There was no need for cohesion of the body of work. I was able to try anything and do anything that occurred to me. Naturally sort of, I feel like I have like a few voices. One of them is very watery. One of them is very thick. And maybe 4, because one of them's a little bit quirky and one of them's a little bit more realistic, like abstract realism. And the daily practice showed me 4, let's just say 4 pathways of how I could move forward with making art. And but moving to this land, I began to feel into some most authentic aspects of like how I want to make and what I'm drawn to make and how I want to talk about practice and what practice looks like. And in fact, my practice has changed since living here. For 2,740 days, I made a painting every day. And since then, I've sometimes made a painting in a day, but for the most part, I've been working on longer arc paintings, but instead of taking 6 months or 8 months, they're happening in like a week or even sometimes a couple of days. And I have a sense of my skill and where I want to push my skill further. And again, my voice. And so much of that has come from allowing the evolution of daily practice and allowing myself to be moved by my environment. Because this place is very stable, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of sage. There's a lot of marks that I find deeply satisfying that I want to replicate. And a lot of the palette here are the colors I want to, like achy yellow greens, otherwise known as olive, or like pine, a lot of green, really. I've like realized that I just love green. But this land deeply has informed myself as a painter and as a daily practitioner of painting.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you started off with the faces. What happened after the faces? Like after the 30 days, what did you move on to?
Oh my gosh.
Did you keep
everything? I mean, I have like multiple books here. There's a lot of faces. Like I don't even know.
wow.
They may not come through. Like there's a lot of faces. And in fact, actually this
Oh.
the Get Messy has sort of helped me see these in these books, which is kind of actually I think this is literally a book of faces. I do a lot of faces. But there's like a lot of animals. There's a lot of landscapes and some abstracts. I feel like I'm just getting a handle on abstracts. But yeah, I went everywhere that I was inspired. So sometimes a conversation would spark something. Sometimes a dream would spark something. Sometimes I wanted to practice a technical skill or like a technique. And that was kind of fun to have, to get nerdy too, but to, you know, let that build my voice and what's important to me to create.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so you've shown us some of your paintings. Did you sell any of those initial ones, or are they like precious?
Some are precious, but I've probably only kept 30.
Okay.
And I've sold more than half of them.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of cool. And they're all over the world, which is also kind of cool.
Yeah, that is.
I think that was kind of an important thing for me. So, and I actually wrote a book about this whole thing because there's so much here that's like nuance. And I'm working on the second volume of this book because there's even more nuance now that I've opened it up from making a painting every day. But you know, sharing on something like social media isn't going to work for everybody. And I feel like part of that, particularly when it comes to like protecting practice as practice and not as performance, social media may not work for everybody. And so selling work may not work for everybody. And I'm not saying that you have to sell through social media, but there is something about that that really absolutely shaped my practice because again, returning to this idea of monasticism, there was something about treating social media like a lab space and being more of a creator than a consumer there. And also having soft accountability through pleasure because people were psyched to see what the daily painting was. So for years, and in fact, actually, I got many messages of like, I'm mourning that I'm happy for you, but I'm mourning the fact that you're not posting a painting every day. And I'm like, heard. There was so much for me about social media being both a lab space and also like relational, I want to say accountability, but that sounds punitive. Like, it's not like anyone would have punished me for taking a day off at all, but I didn't. Because there was a relationship that was tended. I still haven't taken a day off from daily painting. Even its nebulousness, it's like, it's just who I am. It's like how and who I am now. So, yeah. So selling it was really part of it because I can't keep like 3,000 plus paintings. Like we're inching 300. And there was something about how people found themselves in the daily painting. Like sometimes I would just get a random idea to paint an elk or a rabbit or something. And people will be like, I had a dream last night and like, this is that. Or I had an encounter with an elk last night. That happened actually quite a few times where somebody would like, it would be like the timing of when something would come through me would exactly meet where somebody else was. And that showed me a lot of what art is. Like, I feel like before I was making a lot of art that kind of venerated my pain from some of the things that I've experienced. or it was just like, it was a little bit insular. It was about me processing me, and that's not a bad thing. I feel like my art journal now has so much of that. Like, it's more of like it's a journal. I'm like, I can allow parts of it to be my journal. But having my daily practice allow other people into my inner life and me into theirs created some different kinds of relationships. And selling my art was really has been and still is very important to me, because it's relational. It's not just for me. It's not in a vacuum.
Yeah, I love that, because it's basically a confirmation and a connection to your creative voice, right? Every time you've created something that's really spoken to somebody else and they reach out and say, hey, I had a dream about this, or this is speaking straight to what I've just experienced, that is reaffirming that your creative voice is working, right? That it's reaching outside of you.
And art, where can I put my coffee? Nowhere, on my lap. I forget who said it, but somebody said, there are 3 things that end up on the stage: religion, politics, and art. And even I feel like even when we are alone in our space, creating, and even if it's never shared, there is still an aspect of witness. I feel like it's so important for us to have practices that allow us to witness who and how we actually are. And that witness doesn't necessarily need to be public, but even like seeing what's coming through you and what's here and allowing it to come on the page. There's something powerful in that translation. And if we can be courageous enough to share that, and for me, even sharing that in messiness is like important. So sharing the daily practice, even if I didn't like the painting that day. Honestly, to be completely honest, Claudette, I don't totally love the painting I made for my class. The point of my class actually isn't about that painting. The point of my class is about encountering through process and allowing ourselves to see and witness ourselves come out on the page. And I'm just here for that. I'm kind of here for the bad. I'm kind of here for the bad art.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there that when you have got to film a class, film yourself making something, there's so much going into it that it's like you really strike it lucky if you create something that you love in the process of creating a class. I'm just putting that out there.
Thank you. Because it's like that. It's like a meta observation, like this, we're talking about witnessing. It's like, it's powerful to witness what comes out on the page, by yourself. It's weird when you are filming it and somebody's going to watch it later. You're like, I'm watching myself later. So it's kind of weird, but I pay no mind to that, because well, it's not like I pay no mind to that. I care about it, but I feel like being available for process, and being willing to avail themselves to process is like ultimately more important to me than the final product. That the final product can improve. It just can keep improving. But it won't improve if we don't take risks and avail ourselves to the process.
I think a lot of that has also got to do with the fact that you've got a daily practice, right? Because tomorrow's another day, right? If you are trying to make something perfect and precious, like there's so much pressure on this one piece because it's going to take you 6 months. And if it flops, then you've wasted 6 months. But if you're just going to do a face today and another face tomorrow and another face after that, like if today's bad, it's okay. Tomorrow's another day. So I think that practice has also rooted you in this idea of process is more important than the end product.
Definitely. And I feel like, again, lab spaces, like I basically just make a bunch of soft rules for myself and see what happens and then adjust as needed.
I love that.
Like what happens when you focus and limit what you're going to work with, whether it's time or color or material, and see what can happen with what you have. And then take notes, and then bring whatever is like magic into some future thing, and leave everything else behind. Or visit it again later, because there's some things where I was like, meh, nah. And then like 5 years later, I was like, I think I'm actually ready for that now, because there's a resilience that's built through practice, like what Claudette just said, like what you just said. There's a resilience for showing up in process through knowing that the pressure's off when you're making something, to make something cool.
Oh, I've got so many questions going on in my head right now. Like, okay. So if you're busy, let's say you're saying it might not be right now, right? In 5 years' time, you might come back to it and go, yes, okay, I'm ready for this thing. How are you gathering your inspiration and ideas, and then sort of, because obviously you can't act on all of them immediately. If you're doing it every day, I mean, it comes a lot sooner than once a week. But how are you like keeping track of what you're doing and what you'd like to keep, what you'd like to try or explore further? Have you got a process, a system?
That's cool. That's a cool question, because I feel this feels hilarious to me that this is where it's at for me. For many years, I just wung it. I just went by the seat of my pants. If something inspired me that day, I would find a way to support translating that. So sometimes I look for sources and just get a general sense of a shape of something. Other times I study sources and I'm like trying to replicate them and get my, my skills up that way. Other times I'm just making stuff up, like a lot. But something's beginning to birth in me, particularly as I am working on bigger pieces, and the stakes are not actually higher, but they feel a little higher. Like I'm working on, like my daily practice was on 6x8 pieces of mixed media paper, and a pad of 15 pieces of paper was like $3 or something, through like a discount art supply service. So for years, I worked on this low stakes paper, and that was really helpful. That like helped me feel like whatever I wanted to do, I could just do, and I wasn't going to waste a lot of materials. Now it's a little bit different, because I'm working on more expensive, bigger substrates, for the most part. And I'm beginning to get a sense of who and how I really am, rather than just experimenting. So as I like feel into what I want to create and how I want to create, like what my process is, I'm honing in and curating and being a little bit more discriminative around like what I'm looking at, what I'm consuming, and diving a little bit more deeply into studying things that for instance, I've been painting a lot of deer lately. And deer is coming to me because I had an experience earlier this year that then had a bunch of experiences that rolled out. And so now I'm like going in this direction of deer, and I'm studying deer. I'm studying their patterns of how they move on this mountain, and their social structures, and feeling into like, what about deer do I want to paint? Do I want to paint them like bounding? Do I want to paint them being still? Like, so I'm beginning to like figure out how I want to gather what I'm inspired by and organize it, and creating sort of groupings or tones of things. Sometimes I store pictures on my phone in little folders, so that I can be like, these are sources for the deer. And it's not just deer. Like I'm doing a piece right now with deer and poppy. And the deer is like going into like a thick dark spot, and these poppies are coming out in the very foreground, and there's like a sense of sort of like, not foreboding, but the deer is going into the dark forest. It's not like it's coming from like a really golden open field and moving into the dark forest. But it doesn't feel like totally scary. It's just these are the conditions in which deer has to go now.
Venturing into the unknown.
Yep. So I'm not sure I totally answered your question, but basically I feel like
you have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you have. I think what I'm getting out of this is your creative voice is getting stronger. And so you're gaining a lot of clarity in how you are moving forward now. It's got more intentionality.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, the intention before was experimentation. So like the intention before was held in a tone of practice, and through practice I was like held in an openness around experimentation. And now I'm beginning to like really hone in and focus on some things that I have to say. And I think that's like something that's been birthing in me for the last couple of years, like organizing my thoughts. So I wrote this book. I'm going to hold it up because I wrote it.
Yes, please.
I'm not trying to promote it really, but I'm just like,
no, you must. You've put it out there.
This is my book. Don't just do something, be here. An interactive resource book for creating and sustaining daily practice from an arts monastic perspective. It's a long title. But organizing my thoughts last year through this book, I was like, oh my gosh, I have things to say. I think before I was just doing, my head was down and I was maintaining my creativity and exploring and experimenting, and sort of feeding the hunger that I have to paint without like, I feel like if I had like looked at my desire to paint more directly, it maybe would have thrown my whole life off because I wasn't actually ready to go towards painting full time. I'm still not doing that because I have some other things that are here for me to tend. But as I'm ready to paint more, I recognize how much I have to say, and I'm allowing myself to say that, really like stepping out and actually saying that, and letting my art impact more and be bigger and just say more. So yeah, there's something about that, that before it was like a tone of experimentation, and now it's focusing, and it's still focusing, it's in process, but I'm excited, I guess, to see who I am on the other side of allowing myself to come out more.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm excited for you. I think I'm picturing that you've been on this journey, like I'm thinking Hansel and Gretel, right? They picked up those little crumbs. So they didn't know where they were going. They just followed each little breadcrumb of inspiration. And one day you looked up and you realized like where you were. That's just how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Like you sort of realized I've actually arrived somewhere magical, and you could sink into that place. Maybe that's your new home, right? Once you'd arrived there, and now you've got your roots going down, and you are now starting to sort of open up to a new chapter.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, it's totally a Hansel and Gretel trail of breadcrumbs. I feel like something sparked in me when that artist was doing the 30 faces, and something sparked in me even as a young child, again with Sound of Music. And it's amazing how if we just keep following the crumbs, at some point you recognize you're in a candy cottage and you're going to be eaten.
Yes.
But like
that's why I was like, just that we went to a dark place there all of a sudden.
I actually think this is an important piece. So I'm psyched that you brought a fairy tale in, because one of the recurring dreams that I had that brought me to this land was a refashioning of the Snow White story. And part of what has been happening for me with Snow White coming from my dream self, my soul, and like kind of demanding attention, in a myriad of ways, and it has evolved over time. I feel like dreams are alive and they're not static things, and I therefore try not to interpret them. And I kind of feel like that about art too, which is why I'm mentioning that. But this Snow White dream came, and one of the things that I came into a reckoning with a few years ago, and this really was a turning point for me, is what happens when I actually take the apple in and let it put me in a coma for 3 days. What happens when I take it in? What happens when I become the evil witch, or let the evil witch destroy me? There is actually something for me about like this Hansel and Gretel shape of like, I'm going into, we're going towards this sweet looking thing. I think a lot of people look at art like, oh, it's luxury. Like, oh, you get to paint all day. I'm like, yeah, it looks like that. And there is an elder form that is a trickster that is in here that actually is going to maybe dismember you and maybe require that you become something new. And if we resist that, we may very well be resisting our absolute magic with why we make. And I am not just the innocent that's going into the candy house. I am also the witch that is going to like destroy part of myself, not destroy my innocence, but refashion so that it actually has an opportunity to be taken in. Like what happens when my evil witch self takes in the innocence, or my innocence like allows the evil witch self to like be whole. I think a lot of those stories are about integration of the shadow and wholeness. And if we can keep looking deeper into it, we might find more keys and clues in those stories. I don't feel like it's an accident at all that you just mentioned that, because it's true. All I could see was
I
the
love
breadcrumb.
that.
All I could see was the breadcrumb, and it took me 10 years, almost like 9 years of daily practice to arrive at my voice. And I feel like that might be true for some of the people who are listening to this. Like, we may not immediately know who we are as artists. It likely will take a long time. It can take a long time, and it doesn't mean that success can't happen along the way, or that beauty can't happen along the way, or yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to trust the process, right? Just trust that what's unfolding is exactly as it should be.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. Okay. So my next question is, if someone wants to start a daily practice, does it need to be 3,000 and some odd days? Let's start with 30. We'll do 30. They want to start a 30-day project. What are some of the things that you have learned along the way that you would say, okay, these are important to have in place to start your practice?
Yes, love this question. I would say for whatever length of time you're curious about practicing, I invite you to consider asking yourself, what is underpinning your desire to practice? Again, for me, the quality that underpins my desire for practice, one of them is presence, really being here. Painting is something I absolutely love, but painting is not really my calling. My calling is to presence. And painting is a vehicle for that for me. Why? Because painting is deeply activating to me. Color is activating to me. Pushing paint around is activating to me. Being inspired and finding resources, or like realizing what inspires me, like it's like my whole system kind of goes into a flutter. And I think it's taken me a really long time to really integrate and regulate around how activating painting is for me, which is why I had a daily painting practice. But the underpinning thing that kept going for me was presence. I know that through three-dimensional art processes, I am here more, and I love it. So I'm going to use that as my vehicle. But I feel like practice has two clear branches. There's a bunch of nuanced other branches, but there's practice to achieve something. Like, I want to be better at something, and so I'm going to, I want to play Carnegie Hall, and so I'm going to practice piano every day for 3 hours. That's cool. If you want to play Carnegie Hall and you want to achieve something, practice is going to be a pathway to that. there's this other pathway of practice that I would call alchemy, which is like becoming the thing that you are practicing. And I feel like a first step of that is asking yourself, what do I want? Why do I want to practice? What are the qualities that are underpinning my practice? And then I invite folks to mess around, like try things. Some folks maybe aren't served by committing to doing a specific thing every day. Sometimes we might need to commit to the quality and then have a list of things that are in integrity with that quality that we can choose from for the day. I feel like a third step for me after messing around and arriving at something that you like. For me, again, I messed around for 15 years and then I found daily painting. So it wasn't like I was just like, I'm going to be a daily painter. It was like, I'm committed to daily practice. My desire is presence. I did every kind of thing until I arrived at daily painting. And then daily painting was the vehicle for that. So when you arrive at a thing through messing around that works for you for whatever time it works for you, I'm not committing to painting every day for the rest of my life. Who knows what's going to happen? But it's still working for me because I've made a simple agreement with myself. My agreement is to touch the page within 24 hours. It actually was never to make a painting every day. That was never my agreement. I just happened to do that for 2,740 days. Such a nerd. Oh my gosh. But touching the page within 24 hours means I'm not waking up and trying to do it first thing. I'm not committing to a length of time of painting. I'm not committed to specific content. I'm not committed to anything except my simplest agreement, which is touching the page every day. It doesn't, yeah. I found that to be the most sustainable thing for me because when I have tried to do things at certain times for certain lengths of times and to do specific things, there's like a demand avoidance that comes up and then I sort of sabotage myself. And so there's a courtship with arriving at what the simplest agreement is. And it takes time.
Okay. So I've done 2 365-day projects in my little art journey. So it's interesting for me because I'm very like, these are the rules and you're going to stick to the rules, right? So I decided on the size of the paper ahead of time, worked out how many sheets I was going to need. So I bought so many books so that I would have the exact same paper for all 365 days. I had decided ahead of time it would be 365 days, like, and these were the supplies. And so I had very rigid rules that I stuck to for both projects. And I didn't change, didn't waver from that. But I think I love this idea of having the freedom to go where the inspiration takes you, right? Because at the end of my 365 days, I had done the project. I had done the 365 days, but I didn't have anything that I felt really passionate about, if that makes any sense. I think the rules kept it too confined. I think that was the problem. So it was like I got 365 days, but at the end I was like, I just put the pieces in my cupboard and I was like, okay, well, Oh,
Claudette, when you ask yourself in this moment, which you may not have an answer to this in this moment, but maybe you do, and that could be cool. And it doesn't have to be the answer, but like what might be a simplest agreement for you? Like, what might be a fueling or a quality that you could commit to that like energizes you, that actually like maybe gives rise to something that you're passionate about?
I would like, the immediate answer that comes to mind is play, like just have fun, right? Like, and I think that's where those rules were like, I stuck to it. I did the 365 days both times. And the Instagram accountability, because I would post it every day on Instagram, right? If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have reached the end, because as you say, there are people, and nobody's going to come after you if you don't post it. But everybody gets so invested in the project along with you. So accountability, I think, is really important. but yeah, I would want to play more. If I did it
Play.
again, I would be like, just play.
Rad. That's rad. So
Yeah.
an underpinning quality could be play.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of rules? So, because I'm always curious when people do daily practice. What kind of rules did you put on yourself?
Okay, well, obviously it was the size, first of all, and then I had to film it.
Oh.
So it
Oh.
had to be start to finish. I filmed each and every one.
Dang.
And I had like really specific supplies that I had chosen that I was going to work with. So I had my supplies, and yeah, so that like, and I found by the end of the 365 days, there was almost like a process because I knew which supplies I liked using first so that I'd get a certain result if I used the second one, after that. And so it was nice to learn how I'd like my supplies to play with each other.
Yes.
Right? But I didn't give myself enough freedom, I think. Looking back, I feel like there wasn't enough freedom to just have fun.
That.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm curious about simply taking out even filming. If I had filmed all of them and even posted filming, I filmed quite a few of them. I filmed some of the process, but that observer of like, I'm observing and then I'm observing myself later being observed. Oh my gosh, it's like too much sometimes. But yeah, play. There is something really cool, and I want to touch on something that you just said, which is like, it's kind of cool for a daily practice. One of the things that I figured out is how to actually finish a painting in a day. And it's a very different process, and a lot of it has to do with the materials, because I think before, one of the reasons why I was stuck on a piece for 6 or 8 months is that like I was working in a sluggish way, trying to push through materials and then needing to recover and figure out how there could be any space in any of those pieces. Like they ended up being too flat or like full or dense or something. And it was kind of great for me to know that basically between a half an hour and 4 hours is what I had. That's usually how long any of the paintings took. And it was 4 hours for the first couple of years. Like it began to loosen as I began to loosen, and I began to work with different materials that I knew that I could use to finish a painting in the day. And the order of that, I think voice is definitely built through recognizing an order of materials, and the way that we uniquely, build them and let some of them breathe on a page. But having an underpinning commitment to play, what if, and I'm not telling you to do this, but laboratorying, if you're open to this, are you open to this?
Yes.
What if committing to a quality of play even more strongly than committing to 365 paintings, underpinned, and like by play, do you like through a lens of play, do you ask yourself, like, do I want to film today? Like, would filming be fun today? Because sometimes it is. Like,
would this be necessary? Yeah, it is, right? Sometimes you are just in the mood to, but again, like if it wasn't something that you had to do every day, you've already given yourself more freedom to decide, no, not today.
Yeah, it's such a delicate balance of like, what is the container? Like having enough commitment and enough container for there to be some shape to get some feedback from, but not so much container that practice becomes punitive discipline instead of like generative, liberating discipline. And I, again, like for me, committing to a quality, another quality that I've committed to is savouring. That's like what I found in the last couple of years since I've opened my practice up, is like, it was presence, and like there was a seriousness to that, and savouring brings an aspect of sweetness and play to me, and
it feels gentle.
Like some of the
Yeah.
mechanics are the same, but the way in which I'm approaching it through the lens of savoring has altered what it looks like.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Like presence, yes, presence is that feels weighty, right? But
Yeah.
savoring just feels so tender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's room for different things to happen there when I let that
Mm,
quality. It does. It brings into
mm.
intimacy. And so
Yes.
there's an intimacy with myself, but then there's also an intimacy with
Mm,
anyone who is drawn to that work. Or if I do post the process on like Instagram or something, there's an intimacy there that is actually about savoring instead of like just
mm,
accountability. It becomes more, there's more emphasis on the relationship rather than, again, the whether or not something is useful or productive. And I feel like one of
mm,
the things as artists that we get to explore and speak to um, sort of challenges whether or not something has to be useful and productive, um, and or like what becomes useful and productive from process, from exploration,
mm,
from savoring, from play.
mm. Oh, wow. Okay. I love this. I love it. I have another question. Oh, I've
Great.
got a lot of questions, right? So you are very open and vulnerable almost, but also brave in expressing yourself, in saying exactly how you feel, saying what you think, and just being true to your voice. Have you always been like that, or was it something that has developed over time?
Wow. First, thank you. It feels like a very high compliment. Um, I so I feel this kind of brings me back to returning to environment and the people that I come from, because
Mm,
um, the context that I grew up in, uh, everyone is who they are. Like
mm,
in my mother is Mi'kmaq. That's the tribe that we're from, in Native American tribe that we're connected to. And I'm obviously mixed. I'm also Celtic. Um, but um, you know, like when I'm in indigenous environment, everyone is as they are. There isn't a lot of pretense, and there are
mm,
moments where people are holding different stances. Like, for instance, like one of the elders that I've worked with in my 20s and 30s, I've had hamburgers with him. Like, I've been in casual environments with him, and I've been in ceremony with him.
mm,
And I could see a full breadth of who he was as a person. It wasn't this sequestered sort of like
mm.
performance of being, in order to like have some like marketable congruence. So I do not probably have marketable congruence. um, I like I have always been who I am. And in fact, I've received feedback from some folks, particularly as a younger person, that was intimidating. And I was like, I'm intimidating? Huh. Why? Have I done something intimidating? And they were like, no, but you know who you are. And I was like, oh, I guess I
Mm,
do. Because for me, in some ways, I feel like I'm just now getting to know who I am.
mm.
But I have also always been who I am. I I think I've always been who I am. Yeah.
I think a lot of conditioning today is like hide yourself because you don't
Yep.
want to stand out. You don't want to look different. You don't want people to um, sort of single you out
Yep.
almost. You know, there's a lot of that kind of conditioning in society. So I love that you feel, you know, it's just a part of who you are, and you've just been able to keep that untainted almost.
It's been it hasn't been without challenge to keep it intact.
Mm,
Like
mm,
I grew up in a very, well, I actually moved around a lot, but when I finished schooling, when I finished high school, I was in this town that was pretty, almost everyone was sort of similar. And then there was a few of us who were like, you know, ethnically different. And I definitely was like aware that I was different. And I received a lot of like interesting feedback about that. Like people would be like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm human. What are you?" And they'd be like, "No, like racially." And I'm like, "I'm mixed." Like I'm all kinds of things. And I can fit into all kinds of environments, but there's often been something about me that people have not been sure what's different about me. What, like they're picking up on something, but they're not sure what it is. And I have been deeply challenged by that, but I also just can't help be who I am. So it hasn't been without challenge. Like I've definitely had to, figure out how to meet those moments and that curiosity. And also, I guess, educate some folks a little bit on like maybe not othering me. And I definitely like wore brighter colored clothing for a little while, and then I've like sort of like I naturally toned down. So it's not like I'm not totally me. But I feel like increasingly I'm allowing more of myself to come back out again. Because I can see more context of where I've made some choices to like stay safe. And then there are other facets of me, the naming who and how I really am. For some reason, I haven't been afraid of that part. So I don't know. It's curious. Identity is curious, and identity in relationship, not only intimately, but like in a general way, is like curious.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's ever changing, right? Your environment, who you are in a relationship with, whether it's intimately or through collaboration in whatever your work environment might be. Like there's so many factors that influence your identity in that moment, right? It's ever changing. So yeah, you just got to, again, be present and savor where you are.
Yeah.
It all comes back full circle.
It does. It comes back always to me to practice. Always. Yes. Always about practice. It is a practice to actually be who and how we are. It is a practice. And one thing I'll say about art that has been really profound for me is that art has been a playground for me to gain more resilience in being who and how I really am. Art feels very high stakes. It's very vulnerable. Even when you're alone, it can be very vulnerable. And if we can allow ourselves to move into those places of vulnerability and then come out of them and then bring what we've gleaned and gathered into our daily lives, it's fortifying. It like fortifies our ability to be who and how we really are. Because you can actually see that, and we're maybe not as like swayed or dinged when things impact us in unexpected ways. So there's so much to this about intersections of art and practice and actually being a person, like being who and how we really are.
Yeah. You did an Instagram reel recently about art being or feeling high stakes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really powerful. Do you want to maybe share the idea again with us, for those that obviously now listening to us chatting haven't seen that?
Yeah. It's sort of a recap of some parts of what I just said, but like adding, let's see if I can remember what I said.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what was included in the reel that I also like. It's the gist of it, but there was something else. I think it was, what struck me was your invitation to people to
keep making,
take it further. Yes, right. To take it further, to allow yourself to feel that risk almost.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Thank you. Yes. I was like, there is a heart of that, which really is that, which is that, like, if the vulnerability comes up, lean into it. Lean into the
Yes.
critical voices, lean into where judgment might be coming up, or discomfort might be coming up, because that really is how we titrate what impacts us, and how we can respond. It really cultivates resilience. And art really is a powerful alchemist in that way. Like, we're if we can avail ourselves to that process, we just become more whole, including the shadow. It kind of returns to the Hansel and Gretel of, like, what happens when you lean into the evil witch, right? Like, martial arts sort of shows you that, like, you don't back up from the person who's attacking you. You actually go closer to them. So what happens when you go closer to those critical voices and welcome them? Because most of them are coming from wound. Like, they're coming from places where we've been told we're not enough, or we're not good, or like, we shouldn't do that, or whatever. Like, a lot of my critical voices come from wounds, things that people have said to me, or places where I haven't been met, and ignoring them and putting them in a corner doesn't really seem to help them much. So what happens when I make a home for them and hug them and bring them in close and welcome them in?
Yes, like embrace them and allow them. It's actually exciting to consider what the results could be of actually just giving them space, instead of, as you say, trying to ignore them, trying to sort of hide them and pretend they're not there. But what amazing things could develop from allowing them to just be. And then giving them that space to breathe, right?
And then maybe even eventually, we may not love them immediately. It may not be that, but simply, I love what you're saying of, like, letting them just be there with us. I love that that's exciting, because honestly, I get deeply excited about these kinds of things, where I'm like, when I have a moment of recognition of what the creative process is actually offering me and how human it is. I think so much art has been brought into such a deeply elite place, and a lot of what I care about with creativity is, like, actually returning it to the hands of the people, because it's so much more than performance or gallery, or it's so much more. We as humans have been turning towards creative process, not only for personal self-expression, but for creating things that last through time, that let somebody know what was important. Like, when we ask ourselves what's important about what we're making, I think, like, those kinds of inquiry bring us deeper into personal self-cultivation. And I find that so exciting, to see what can be uncovered through creative process.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today, Meg, and for sharing your creative wisdom with us. I've loved this chat, and I'm feeling excited and inspired. Like, I'm thinking I need to go on another 365-day project.
Yes.
But it's just going to be play. Yes, 2025. That is so exciting. Thank you so much. I've really loved chatting to you.
Likewise, Claudette. This is so wonderful. And I do wish I had gotten to maybe hear you talk more. And to get to know you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you more. But this has been really lovely, and I'm so grateful to be able to share these thoughts and be in this conversation with you. Thank you.